Dear colleagues, the Standing Committee on Justice Policy is now in session.
An act to enact the Ontario Fair Hydro Plan Act 2017 to make amendments to the Electricity Act 1998 and the Ontario Energy Board Act 1998. I commend all my colleagues, since the House is not even sitting. Parliament is actually in recess, but for doing the people's work on off time. Our first presenter, who will have, like others, 5 minutes in which to present, followed by 3 3-minute rotations, is Timothy Curtis, President of Niagara on the Lake Ontario Hydro. Please come forward. Mr. Curtis, you've seen the drill. Timing is enforced with military precision. I invite you to be seated. Time begins now.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to present to this committee. I'm going to read my remarks, but they are also in the package passed to you. If you're wondering why I'm here and why Niagara Lake Hydro, a small local distribution company owned by its town, has been so active on Ontario electricity issues, the reason is simple. Our services are only around 15% of our customers' total electricity bill. We one of the lowest delivery costs in the province. We focus very closely on the cost of our service, but the impact of our actions are limited. The biggest part of our customers' bill, and the part that has risen so much, is the cost of electricity generation. If by our efforts we can reduce that cost, we will provide our customers the biggest service possible. As a result, overall we support the Fair Hydro Plan. However, there are ways it can be substantially improved, and I would like to provide these suggestions to you now. We support moving the OESP to funding by provincial revenues. It is a social program rather than an electricity program. However, we question why we are continuing with this complex and expensive approach to delivering this benefit. A refundable tax credit would be simpler, have higher uptake, and lower administration costs. We support moving the rural and remote rate protection to funding by provincial revenues. However, this move and the previous increase in the RRP would not have been necessary if Hydro One Distribution had controlled its cost like most municipally owned LDCs. Distribution rates for municipally owned LDCs have increased on average at around the rate of inflation over the last 10 years. This is around 20%. Distribution rates for Hydro One rural customers have gone up around 70% and can be over $100 for an average customer. And if you were a customer of an LDC that Hydro One purchased at around the time of the market opening, then the rates have more than doubled. There's a chart in your package with full details. To be clear, I know rates must be higher in rural areas due to the low density, but they should not be going up faster. We recommend breaking up Hydro One between transmission and distribution, as was originally proposed in the Ed Clark reports, and then breaking up the distribution business further. We support the 8% rebate funded by provincial revenues. However, we disagree with not extending it to all business customers. Businesses are suffering from the high electricity costs as much as residential customers, and they create jobs. We recognize that this will double the cost, but if we're going to fix mistakes, let's fix them for everyone. We support the reduction in the global adjustment. Again, we believe it should be extended to all customers rather than just residential and small business customers. If you did this, you could cancel the ICI program, in which only limited business can participate and which has a number of negative aspects. Most importantly, though, we do not support borrowing the OPG balance sheet and creating a massive debt that will have to be paid by future electricity customers. The high cost of electricity is driven by procurement mistakes that we estimate are costing Ontario electricity consumers over $3 billion a year. The Fair Hydro Plan basically acknowledges this. We also know that these costs cannot be avoided. Contractual commitments have been made. Previous governments have tried this deferral trick before. The result was much of the stranded debt in 1999, and then growth in the stranded debt in 2003 and 2004. Let's be responsible and fund this reduction of provincial revenues either annually or, even better, up front. All of the above parts of the Fair Hydro Plan are nice, but they are also just financial engineering. None of them get rid of any of the real costs in the system. The Fair Hydro Plan talks about potential future savings, but there's nothing concrete. What we really need is the hard, unsexy work of removing costs from the system. Here are a few ideas. Cancel FIT 5. The government has announced there will not be a FIT 6, but why do we still have a FIT 5? And are there other contracts that we can cancel or buy out more cheaply? Cancel the CDM program. It costs over $400 million a year, and we have a surplus generation anyway. Cancel the MDMR. It is costing $50 million a year, and LDCs do not need it for time-of-use billing. As previously discussed, break up Hydro One and create smaller distribution utilities with a governance that is regional and consumer-focused. We can bring down rates to customers. And do we need a market price and the associated costs of running a market when over 90% of supply is on contract or a regulated price? I do not know the answer to this, but it is worth investigating. Finally, the very need for the Fair Hydro Plan came about because some basic rules of investing were ignored. Perform rigorous cost-benefit analysis before every investment decision. Allow an independent, knowledgeable body, potentially the OEB, the authority to review the cost-benefit
Thank you,
analysis.
Mr. Curtis. That's the 5 minutes for introductory remarks. Our first line of questioning begins with the PC party, the Honourable MPP Todd Smith.
Mr. Curtis, good to see you this morning. Thanks for coming in, and I appreciate your honesty on Bill 132. I'm just curious, the Fair Hydro Plan, what has that meant for your distribution company as far as cost to advertise the 8% rebate, and then what will it cost when the Fair Hydro Plan comes into effect? As far as stationery and staff time and those types of things, do you have any idea?
I honestly do not have an idea. It's a bill insert, so we're able to do those basically as part of our negotiations anyway, because we have those continuously. So it'd really just be the cost of the paper and the cost of the advertising. And the major cost would be any software changes needed to adapt our system.
So there will be costs involved to advertise this savings for the government?
There are some, yes.
And who ultimately pays for that?
Well, they're included in our costs, so ultimately they get passed on to our customer, yes.
Right, so it'll increase the cost of electricity?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you believe that the Ontario Energy Board has enough independence from government?
No, I believe I made that statement, and in fact, its independence has been eroded over the last number of years, particularly with the most recent bill. There had been, I think the number is up to 20 directives to the OEB from the government since market opening. Some of them are actually contradictory. And it's clear by some of the OEB's decision-making that they are being made based on government policy, not based on any analysis that they have performed. So they've become less independent.
Right, less arm's length than they
Very
would
much.
lead you to believe on the government side. In your opinion, and you touched on this, are ratepayers getting any benefit from the CDM, the Conservation and Demand Management Program?
Certainly some of the businesses are able to take advantage of it. There was one business owner told me, I pay for it here and I get it back here. But, I'm speaking about it more from an industry point of view. I mean, it is not creating offsetting savings to justify its cost. Certain businesses do, and certain towns get good advantage of it because the money's got to go to somebody. But if you look at it from the average consumer, they're worse off.
The money from the CDM program, how could that be better spent?
Well, we would argue we'd rather not spend it. Certainly, I think it should be much more targeted. A lot less of it is needed and much more targeted in terms of what it's there for.
And in your opinion, and you mentioned this earlier, the government continues to make the same mistakes that has driven up the cost of electricity when it comes to adding new generation to the system. Would you expand on that in 15 seconds?
Yeah, well, as I said, let's stop signing any more contracts.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. To the NDP, Mr. Gates.
Thank you very much. Morning, Tim. How are you, buddy? We're really here to hear the presentation on behalf of Niagara Lake, which obviously is in my riding. I'd like to open this with a straightforward question for you. This plan still commits to the sell-off of Hydro One. Do you believe selling off Hydro One has been in the best interest of the residents in Ontario?
We approach this slightly different.
Chair, I'd like
Your
to
time
raise
is up.
a point of order on this. The sale of Hydro One is not opened in this particular bill, and I'd like to ask the chair for a ruling on whether discussion of legislation that has not been opened in this bill is in order.
I think your point is well taken, but I would respectfully encourage all members and, of course, our presenters to speak to the issue at hand. There is obviously some leeway with regard to electricity pricing in general. It's a broad topic, but your point is well taken, Mr. Gates. Mr. Tabuns.
Yeah, if I could just say, if you're talking about electricity prices, you're talking about the factors that feed into the upward pressure on electricity prices. So talking about all the factors is entirely legitimate.
Thank you. We're correct. Please go on.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Sir, our view on the sale of Hydro One is, I mean, we don't have a strong opinion either way in terms of whether it's privately owned or publicly owned. Our concern is with the fact that the distribution arm of Hydro One has a very poor record, and all you have to do is look at how the rates performed over the last 10 years to see that. On the flip side, I would say Hydro One Transmission has kept their rates within the rate of inflation and is very well respected. Why not split the two, as was originally proposed? And then further, why not re-break down the distribution business to more local companies where you can get local governance that are more focused on customer issues?
So as a local government, how do your rates compare?
We have the lowest rates in the Niagara region, and according to the Financial Post, we're about the 6th or 7th lowest in Ontario.
I think that's important to say. I know you had a chance to meet with each party on this topic. Could you comment on how this plan compares to the other parties' plans to address the hydro crisis?
Well, with all respect to Mr. Smith, they haven't do have a platform yet, so really can't comment on what's not out there.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, this is the most aggressive in terms of reducing prices, so we actually, as I said, we support this from that point of view. Our position was we need to, with all these expensive high-price contracts out there, we need to write them off down to what the real price of electricity should be. This effectively does that, but we'd rather see it all done at once.
Okay. This was sort of touched on by the PCs. Do you feel the OEB mandate is currently best serving the people of Ontario? And if not, how could this be addressed? And I know you've talked on this quite a bit before.
We believe that, I mean, even though they're our regulator and we're going to be doing battle with them soon with our rate application, we still support that a fully independent Ontario Energy Board that can provide independent analysis.
Okay. I can tell you a few things that make people angry in Ontario, and that's the fact that we're selling power at a loss to the United States. What do you do to recommend should be done when it comes to the issue of oversupply of energy?
Right, that's because the ISO has not been able to properly plan for the matching of generation and the use because of a lot of these contracts for wind and solar where you can't control.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. The government side, Mr. Delaney.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Curtis, how many customers do you have in Niagara-on-the-Lake Hydro?
9,000.
9,000. Last Thursday, I was out at Niagara Peninsula Energy to discuss the Fair Hydro Act. What differences do you have with your sister distribution company on this? They seem to be very much in favor of it.
Oh, well, as I think I stated, we do support it, so it's not that we're not in favor of it. We just have suggestions for improvements. I have not discussed this with MPEI, so I can't comment on what our views would be.
What are you doing at Niagara-on-the-Lake Hydro to promote conservation?
We are actually one of the top performers in terms of conservation promotion. I don't know the exact number, but we're certainly well above 50% in terms of our performance based on the ISO results that came out, I think, in April. So we have been one of our staff members is fully focused on it.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Delaney, and thanks to you, Mr. Curtis, for your deputation on behalf of Niagara-on-the-Lake Hydro.